560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yesterday, talked a bit about the contretemps over Trump's firing of that functionary at the Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics over the unemployment number, or the jobs number, after that unexpectedly low number came out on Friday, and then the corrections for the previous 2 months were massive. But as we talked about yesterday, in part with Carol Roth, I mean, for the Department of Labor to be off by a wide margin, at least, I mean, their own survey data against their own survey data. I don't even know how you know if the correction is closer or the initial projection is closer. And that's sort of the point. The methodology is dubious, and so it's a number to be discounted. And we've been saying that for years on the show, but it's not to be discounted if everybody believes it's important. And this is the rub. So on the one hand, I mean, we broadcast here in Chicago from a city where a majority of people think all kinds of things are true that are in fact not true. But if everybody decides that this is true, then and you're trying to argue, from a different perspective, it just doesn't have any currency when it comes to how things will actually move. It's like looking at the fundamentals of the market and saying, well, this just doesn't make any sense. This is a sugar high. There's no way this is sustainable, and so on and so forth, and betting against City Hall. But as long as City Hall is continuing to manipulate the market through asset purchases, like, for example, a decade of quantitative easing, then you're going to be wrong even though you're right. So how do we sift through how much attention to pay to things like unemployment rate, monthly jobs number, and even, as John Tamny writes, GDP, which he calls a, quote, worthless calculation, unquote, as well. John Tamny is the editor of RealClearMarket's, RealClearMarket's.com. He's also the author of The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Well, first tell us why the GDP is the GDP number that 3% growth in the Q2, big number, hooray, why that is meaningless. And then also, does it matter if it's meaningless if everybody believes it's meaningful?
It matters that it's meaningless, and it certainly is meaningless. Let's never forget that government, as we've discussed numerous times on your show, has no resources. So when governments spend, there's no growth in it by definition. The central planning of resources never grows an economy. But even more important, governments only have money to spend insofar as the economy's already grown. And so to pretend that government increases GDP is a monument to double counting. There's no growth. There's growth. Subsequently, there's government spending. Let's add that easily the most bullish aspect of economic activity is imports, because that signals you're producing in a way that you're attracting the production of the rest of the world. But if imports surge, which is what happened in the first quarter this year, that brings down the GDP number. Mm-hmm. Let's throw in the third thing. If suddenly Chicago wanted to, quote, stimulate its economy in the eyes of economists, they could hire every unemployed person to dig holes and then refill them. That would actually grow Chicago's economy without growing it at all.
Don't give them any ideas.
Grows GDP. Yeah, no, but it's also what grows GDP. It's just a terrible number, and so you knew it was going to go up, and how you knew it was going up was that it went down in the first quarter. Why did it go down in the first quarter? There was an import surge to get ahead of the Trump tariffs. And so with the pause in the tariffs, obviously there's going to be a reduction in imports that was going to push the number up. I mean, that both sides continue to kneel at this number is just so embarrassing.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but then explain how it's a meaningless number. You explain that, but it should be treated as meaningless, even though you have all these institutional interests that you just referenced that treat it as meaningful.
Well, but okay, they treat it as meaningful, but markets always speak, and that would be my pushback on your comment about QE. Markets always speak. GDP soared under Jimmy Carter. Did markets rise under Jimmy Carter? No, it was a lousy time to be an investor. Markets always know, and they see around it. Economists worship a lot of things that don't make sense, and we get on with our lives with good reason.
The back and forth over the fate of Jerome Powell. I know we've touched on this before, but just to revisit it since it's front and center. Does it matter who the Fed chairman is?
No, of course it doesn't. Because if it mattered who the Fed chairman was, we'd be in a world of hurt. Because we'd be in a world of hurt because one person could have so much control over credit and things like that. That's why I don't get why so many. You and I discussed this the last time I was on your show. Kevin Warsh doesn't need this job. He's married to the daughter of a billionaire. He could get any job at any hedge fund in the world or private equity fund in the world based on his past at the Fed. Why would he want a job that, basically you're following the markets? The markets decide what the cost of credit is. Everyone's got a different credit cost. Every business does. Why would you want this job?
Because he can stay in those $2 billion those $2 billion digs they're building or renovating.
Yeah, I suppose that'd be pretty cool. But J.P. Morgan's got a $2 billion renovation going on in New York right now. Get a job with them. It's a better job. And if inevitably there's an economic crack up, there are because governments make mistakes. You're going to be blamed for it if you're at the Fed. I mean, the Fed's perfect. It's the ultimate whipping boy for Congress. That's one reason we're never going to see it gotten rid of. Politicians on both sides use it. Anytime the economy goes south, they blame the Fed. It's just absurd. But why would you take a job like that where if you succeed, the politicians will take credit, but if you don't, they're going to blame you?
Yeah, but then you're an important guy. You're a consequential guy. You get to go on CNBC and make pronouncements. You have these meetings with mystics, and then you have a press conference afterward, and everybody's talking about you. I mean, you're somebody, John.
You're right. I suppose the attention is intoxicating, and because people still believe what's absurd, that the Fed is all powerful. It's not. Again, if it were, the U.S. economy wouldn't be worth talking about, and the Fed job wouldn't be a good job. If it were at all consequential, we'd really be in a tough spot.
All right, I want to ask you about something that you say is consequential. You wrote a book about it, that I just mentioned, The Money Confusion, about the crypto revolution. So on the show on Friday, in our show here, we had one of our market guys on, Jim Perry. He's a very sharp guy. And one of the things, we talked a little bit about crypto, and he said that stablecoin is a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is because it's backed by paper, T-bills. And so this is, I guess he would say, the beginnings of institutionalizing crypto. Is that your view on it? Is stablecoin an important part of this story and this burgeoning sector, or not, and why?
Well, okay, there's two answers to that. First of all, yeah, it's a great thing in the sense that if you're an Afghan woman trying to hide your wealth, what a beautiful thing. You have a way to essentially lock your wealth up. They can't take it from your person. Mm-hmm. And so you can be from anywhere in the world and have access to what are essentially dollars. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, historically, that was true. The dollar circulates around the world as a consequence of this. People store their wealth in dollars everywhere. But this is a safer way to do it. So that's really great. But wait a second. I've heard for years from all the crypto crowd, well, yeah, these cryptocurrencies, see, they're a response to central banks and currency devaluation and all the terrible things, that governments are doing. Okay, well, I would disagree about this. Yeah, governments always devalue currencies. Well, so why is stablecoin so great? It's just a proxy for the dollar, which allegedly the crypto revolution was a response to. And so my response is, yeah, this is a logical next step, but this is the limits this is the frontier this is all you're going to do. You're going to recreate the dollar. I thought the whole point was to improve on the dollar. which has me thinking that the ultimate destination for this is going to be someone's going to come out there. I think it'll be an Amazon, JP Morgan, a crypto that actually holds its value, unlike the dollar, and that people will say, I don't want to be paid in dollars anymore. You'll pay me in JP Morgan dollars, and JP Morgan dollars will gradually circulate. You'll walk into a store on Michigan Avenue and say, do you take JP Morgan dollars? Yes, we do.
Well, that's sort of what I was thinking after the fact, that as I was sort of reflecting on what he said. I mean, it sounds logical, but the end of that is, well, so stablecoin is all to drive up demand for treasuries. Well then what is I mean, it's just sort of like it's third order. It's a third order dollar then.
Yeah, it's just you're not doing anything that you don't already have. The dollar is already globally, as we've discussed, just globally circulated. It's everywhere it's needed. If you want to buy a house in Argentina, you'll use dollars. If you want to buy goods in North Korea right now, you're going to use dollars. It's already there. It's just another way to store your wealth in what was allegedly not stable enough, that was allegedly so turbulent that we needed crypto in the first place. And so I don't get where they're going with this.
Well, so then, I mean, if like just to pick back up on your, scenario, the idea of JP Morgan dollars that hold their value. Does your business take JP Morgan dollars, and then you'll be able to transact? So does that mean there is not a crypto at present that you think is going to essentially win the day, that Bitcoin is maybe a extended but nonetheless flash in the pan, and something else that has a different institutional composition is going to be where this really ends up?
Yeah, my guess is there's probably a crypto out there that's going to win the day. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, well,
and
sure.
If I did, but yeah, Bitcoin is not going to be it. But by the very definition of the Bitcoin proponents, they all say, "Oh, it's just going up, 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 up." Well, how could that be a currency? Who would ever transact with something? There's going to be losers everywhere. You see, trade is about equal exchange, and so it's not going to be Bitcoin. Certainly, dollar proxies have their value, certainly around the world, not so much in the United States, but around the world. Okay, that's interesting. So stablecoin has a global importance, but no, something's got to replace this. And so what I argue in the book is that governments have always devalued. We know that. That's just a fact of life. Not central banks. Governments have always devalued. Businesses, conversely, have an incentive to not offend their customers. Businesses don't they are going out of their way to not rob you. And so it strikes me that an Amazon, a JP Morgan, a Wells Fargo, name your bank, is going to say, we can do this better. And oh, by the way, you will hold this money that will come in your paycheck every month, and you can rely on it. It's a forever thing. And that's going to really, I think, strikes me that that's got to be the future.
Well, but how does that work? Because, I mean, just from a practical point of view, you know how those big banks operate, which is they seek to use the government as a sword or a shield. So they'll invite regulation for the purposes of crowding out competition, almost assuredly. And so then it seems to me like we're left back with the same conversation we're having about stablecoins. So what's different?
I just think that they are going to say that we're going to expand, we're going to enhance what is already an interesting idea. Dare I say it? Will one of these entities use gold?
Yeah.
Why? It causes economists' heads to explode. But isn't it interesting that before 1971 there weren't currency markets? Well, why were there no currency markets? Because currencies had a fixed definition in terms of a dollar that had a fixed definition as 1/35th of an ounce of gold. Gold didn't just happen. It wasn't just sunspots. Oh, yeah, let's use gold. Gold was the market's choice after thousands of years of trial and error with all sorts of other currencies. What imbues money with stability? And gold is this constant that's always worked. And so what have we seen since we've untethered the dollar from gold? We've seen a surge in currency trade. And why have we seen that? Because that's been the market's way of saying we don't trust money that lacks a stable definition. And so now there's 10 trillion daily in currency trading. Well, what do markets do best but they compete away margins. There's a margin out there that's been created by money lacking a definition. The world does not want it. Again, look at the currency market. So my strong sense is that eventually, call it Amazon, someone's going to come back with a currency that's defined in terms of something that's very stable, and it's going to be very attractive in the marketplace precisely due to its stability.
John Tamny is the editor of Real Clear Markets, RealClearMarkets.com, the book, which we were discussing in pertinent part, The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. John, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
And John joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Your manufacturing production is only as good as your manufacturing team.
Monarch makes you better, plain and simple. They do an excellent job at recruiting the right people, qualified, experienced top talent that improve productivity.